Good evening and welcome to the South County Fire Board of Commissioners regular board meeting for February 4, 2025. I'll go ahead and call us to order and ask everybody to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, board members, you have in front of you the draft agenda. We don't have anything else for the draft agenda. Anything else for the draft agenda? If not, I'll move that we adopt the draft agenda. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Teoflag. It's been moved and seconded to adopt the agenda as presented. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any discussion on the motion? If not, we'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. That takes us forward then to item number 4 in the agenda, which is our new hire swearing in with Chief Wells. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you. This evening, I'd like to introduce you to Class 25-1. These 13 recruits joined South County yesterday. They'll spend a couple weeks with the training division being onboarded, and then they'll head up to the Snohomish County Fire Academy for 13 weeks of training. So this evening, I'm just going to read their names, and they're going to wave when I read their names so you can put a name to a face. Starting with recruit firefighter Tina Anderson. Recruit firefighter Aiden Hammersmark. Recruit firefighter Gabriel DeBach. Recruit firefighter Christian Copen. Recruit firefighter Alexander Waltemath. Recruit firefighter Corey McKenzie. Recruit firefighter Nolan Schissel. Recruit firefighter Arlie Bjorling. Recruit firefighter Justin Winterhalter. Recruit firefighter Kyle Frankhauser. Recruit firefighter paramedic Jordan Vaughn. Recruit firefighter Grayson Goodwin. And finally, recruit firefighter Patrick Thompson. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Chief Eastman, and he is going to do the oath of commitment.
You prepped them, right? So they know what they're doing? All right, raise your right hand. I state your name. Do hereby declare
I, Gabriel McKenzie, hereby declare
that my fundamental duty is to serve
That my fundamental
duty is to serve
the people of Snohomish County's fire community
the people of South
County
Fire Community.
I swear to protect, safeguard, and preserve life,
I swear to
protect, safeguard, and preserve life,
preserve life,
health, and property against fire and other perils,
health,
and
and
property
property against fire and other perils,
and to maintain a proficiency in the fire service.
and to maintain
a proficiency in the fire
service.
I will uphold the standards of my profession and position,
I will
will
uphold
hold
the standards of my
under my
profession
profession
and
and position.
serve the people and members of the Regional Fire Authority,
serve the people and members of the Regional Fire Authority,
and share my knowledge and skills with my colleagues.
and share my knowledge and skills
with my colleagues.
I recognize the badge of my office
I
Recognize the badge of my office
as a symbol of public faith and trust,
as a symbol
of faith and trust,
and I accept so long as I am true
and I accept
so long as true
to the ethics of the fire service.
to the ethics
of
of the fire service.
So the next two questions you don't need to repeat, but say I do after them. If you, as a member of South County Fire and Rescue, agree to these standards of responsibilities, say I do after the following statements. I accept this self-imposed and self-enforced obligation as my responsibility.
I do.
I do.
I make these promises so solemnly, freely, and upon my honor.
I do.
I do.
Welcome, South County Fire.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Chief Wells, can you just give us a little, say a few words about the upcoming events or training for the recruits in Class 01?
The upcoming training?
Yeah, just what does the next couple of weeks look like?
Sure,
for the
absolutely.
board?
So the next this week is just kind of onboarding HR, getting their uniforms, that kind of thing. Next week is just basic fundamentals to prepare them for the academy, SCBA, hose, ladders, just very basic training. And then they'll have 13 weeks at the academy up in the North County training facility up north. And it's a fabulous academy. They're going to come back, as we say, mission ready on day one. They'll spend a few more weeks with us getting ready for a shift, and then off they go.
Great. That
Yep.
sounds great. Well, on behalf of the board, I welcome all the new employees in our recruit class of 2025-01. Welcome to South County Fire.
Here.
Yes, go ahead. Commissioner.
Yeah, Chief Wells, some of the recruits have had a lot of experience, right? Come from another department. They have the same training as a raw recruit?
Correct. They all go through the academy, regardless of their past experience.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, Commissioner? Sorry?
Yeah.
Commissioner Fernhoff, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to welcome everybody to South County Fire. You've joined one of the most progressive and inclusive organizations in the fire service. I would say throughout the country, but definitely in the Pacific Northwest. So our board is accessible to you through your chain of command, of course, and we all welcome you and are excited for your new career.
Any other comments from other commissioners? Oh, Commissioner Chan, go ahead.
Yeah, I had never been up there. So are there any particular time that we can go and visit? No, in the past, we were coming to peek in here, then we can know what they're doing.
So I guess if, that's actually a good question. Good. If any of the board want to go up there, I would ask either reach out to me or one of the assistant chiefs. And we'll take you up there and show you around and show you what the site has to offer. North County has done an exceptional job. It's got a 3-story burn building. It's got a classroom. It's got, they just put in a strip mall prop, and they've got, it's a lot of property. So if any of the board members want to go up and look at the site, please reach out to myself or one of the assistant chiefs, and we'll go up there. And I would encourage you to do it in the next 13 weeks or 2 weeks from
Right.
now, when the recruits are up there, because one of us tried to get up there every week. And we'd love to actually show you around and show what the new firefighters that we hire and what it looks like up there. And I think to a certain extent, North County is had the vision, and it's an impressive facility. And if you haven't seen it, I would encourage at some point in time for all the commissioners to go look at where our new firefighters are getting trained at. It's a great resource.
Good. Do you know how many people together with other districts was the total students for the coming?
I believe this class has about 46 or 47 recruits.
Oh, okay. Oh, pretty good size. But we have a good percentage of that too.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Correct.
it's good.
Any other questions from the board members? If not, great. Thank you. Thank you, Chief Wells.
Thank you, Chair.
Did you want to excuse the recruit?
So the recruits, you guys are excused.
Welcome. Welcome to South County Fire.
Okay, moving on then. Next to number 5 on the agenda, we have a special recognition tonight for Leslie Hines, our retiring public information officer. And we have a resolution that we'll get to in a minute in the packet. But I wanted to see if there were commissioners would like to say a few words about Leslie Hines on her retirement this evening. Commissioner Rowland. Yeah, yeah, gotta be in the hot seat. Yes, I should have. And thank you for coming tonight. We appreciate it.
Thank you for inviting me.
Just wanted to thank you for all your hard work. I know with the annexations that we've gone through the past few years, there's probably been a lot of overtime that you've gone through and a lot of extra effort. and you're going to be sorely missed. So thank you very much for everything you've done.
Other comments? Sorry. Oh, Commissioner Fernhoff, go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to say, Leslie, just from kind of a new commissioner's point of view, when I came on board, you showed extraordinary patience with me, a remedial learner, somebody who had to be guided by his hand. I really appreciate all of the time and effort that you showed me. And like Commissioner Rowland said, you will be truly missed by this organization, having formed it through so many iterations from one stage and to its maturity. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Other, Commissioner Lawrence?
Yes, thank you, Leslie. I was always impressed with your professionalism and expertise, and you did a good job in training your replacement. She's filling in just fantastic.
Very good. Yes,
Thank you.
thanks.
Commissioner Chan?
Well, let's see. My God, this was a long time. Oh, it used to be you only the one person, right? You do everything, and now I'm glad that we have more people to support. But it's just amazing that our first trip to Washington DC, and you really handled really well. We're gonna miss you. Are you gonna still live in Briar?
Yes, yes.
Oh, okay.
Briar, yeah.
That's a good place. Well, good luck to your
Yes.
retirement.
Thank you.
And I wanted to say that I learned a lot from Leslie over time. We talked in dealing with the media and print media, television media, and she has excellent speaking and writing skills. The ability to express what we do to the public is really valuable, particularly in the modern era. From the time I started on the board in 2003 to now, there's been a change in the media where initially it's all just about print media and maybe the television occasionally, very rarely. But now with so much social media and the ability to have your own video, have your own put out your own, really be more in charge of the communication that you can have with the community. Leslie was part of that as we developed in the various things that we have and being able to express in social media and communicate more directly with our constituents. And that's really powerful because the ability to communicate that sometimes through third parties, but without that third party kind of interface or filter is really powerful. So Leslie was part of that. And I always remember one of the first times that, maybe not the first time, but the first time that I can really remember seeing Leslie on a fire scene. It was a 4th of July, and I had gone to the 4th of July parade in Edmonds. And this is in the afternoon of the 4th of July. And this has got to be 20 years ago. So I'm out for a run that afternoon before the evening, and in the Silver Firs neighborhood where I live. Yeah. And I'm running, kind of getting towards my house, and I see this big column of smoke going up in the air. And as I'm running along, I'm getting closer to it. I'm like, there's got to be a fire there. So, and it's like really close to where I'm running. So I just detour over there. Lo and behold, yeah, there's a fire, and there's all the fire trucks there. It's South County Fire's there. And who do I see there? It's Leslie's there. And so she was very gracious about chatting with me and talking about what was going on. And I didn't try and get into the fire or anything or tell the battalion chief what to do, but I just learned a little bit more about it. It was really interesting. So it was great that just on the spot, she was able to work with me to just describe a little bit more about what was going on. But Leslie has been I've talked a little bit about kind of media stuff, but one of the impressive things about Leslie's ability to speak with people is in our community meetings of different types. And I really remember some of the post-fire type incident meetings at people's houses. I particularly remember one that was at in a yard. It was actually near where I lived in Silver Firs, and just the ability to kind of organize people, talk about the difficult circumstances, introduce the crews, because we would have the crews come that had responded to the fire, come to the post-fire incident, and she kind of just managed the meeting. And so just a real ability to communicate with people and kind of get everybody talking in a positive way and kind of moving it along and having a good meeting. So really appreciate all that over time because it really makes a difference. I just see a difference between the effort and time that we put into that communication and have over time. And Leslie's a part of that. We're bigger now and have more resources in it, but versus other fire departments or RFAs or other jurisdictions around us that, you know, maybe the battalion chief is getting a quote in the paper, but a lot of times not. It's just it'll be a small article. There'll be very little information. But when it's a South County Fire event, there's more information there, and I think it's because of the PIO, which has been Leslie for a long period of time, but our PIOs overall now, that ability to get more information out there, because I think the community's hungry for that type of thing. And you know, South County Fire is prominently displayed when that happens. So I think that's been a real value add to us in communicating with our constituents. So thank you for all of your service over many years.
Thank you.
Commissioner Teofilo.
Yeah, Leslie, all of my interactions with you have been really good. My major was public relations, and it's like a subset of journalism. So I've always looked at your writing and no misspellings, just everything like makes sense. It's clear and concise. And then also the video with Chief Maxwell about the benefit charge, that was one of the best productions I've ever seen before. So always have done a great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Oh, sorry. Yes, Board Liaison Swisher.
Thanks for noticing. I just want to say, Leslie, thank you for years of service to all of the communities that the RFA, you know, represents. You have been fabulous to work with. I so appreciate your support through bringing Briar on to annex into the RFA. Couldn't have done it without you. And unlike everybody else, I get the benefit of still getting to work with you because you're one of my citizens in Briar. So I'm looking forward to many more lunches together now that you have more time on your hands.
Okay.
Any other comments? Chief Eastman.
Well, this is bittersweet for me. I've had the privilege of working with Leslie in a very different environment than what maybe the general public and maybe what the board sees. You know, her work as a PIO and the work she did to communicate, you know, all aspects of this organization to the public, everybody has seen and know. What you may not know is she was part of the executive team at a level that you guys may not realize what she did. And for me specifically, Leslie was there. I mean, I spent many hours in her office and many hours in my office, and through the times of this organization, you know, you look at levy initiatives and the political things we had moving forward. Oftentimes we were talking strategy and how to move things forward Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday. That's the stuff that you may not see, that I will tell you I will miss. I will say she's left us with an A team. Her bringing Christy on board and then eventually bringing Scott on as the PIO. I mean, it's like we've not lost a step, and that's directly related to Leslie going out and recruiting people, knowing that she was going to leave the organization and left us in a place, quite frankly, where we are now, could have left us in a lurch, and quite frankly, we're surging forward. And I guess, Leslie, I just want to say personally, thank you. There is a hole that with you gone, but I hope you enjoy retirement.
Thank you.
Before I turn it over to the resolution, Leslie, do you have any words?
Yeah, I guess I could say some words. You know, it's really been a privilege to work here. And, you know, when I came, Chauncey Sauer was chief and he was going to retire in 2 years. And I needed a change in my career. And I thought, well, you know, I can do this for 2 years, then we'll just see where it goes. And here I am 27 years later. So it has been a privilege, and it's just, you know, worked with so many amazing people. And, you know, it hasn't always been fun and games, it's been, there've been some contentious moments at times and, I have seen a lot of tragic things, but then, all of that has been outweighed by the just amazing things I see our people do. And, when things did get contentious, when you could go and see the crews at work, see the work they were doing, just really amazing things, but just outstanding levels of compassion, like just incredible. And so that, that's what kind of kept me balanced when things got rough. And I'm just really grateful I had the opportunity to do that. So I look forward to watching from afar to see what you guys do next. So thank you.
Great. Well, we have a resolution, and so I'll move the adoption of resolution 0204-2025-03. Resolution recognizing Communications Director Leslie Hines. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Rowland. It's been moved and seconded to adopt the resolution, which I'll read after we pass it. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any discussion on the motion? If not, we'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Our resolution reads, whereas Leslie Hines has served South County Fire since October 1st, 1997, whereas Director Hines played a critical role in relaying information to the public through a challenging time of growth and change, whereas Director Hines' sound judgment and professionalism supported the agency first through merger of Fire District 1 and Fire District 11, and later through formation of the Regional Fire Authority between Fire District 1 and the City of Linwood. Whereas Director Hines also managed communications efforts during the annexations of Mill Creek, Briar, and Malik Terrace into the RFA, and has been part of every ballot measure for the last 25 years. Whereas Director Hines has overseen the renaming and rebranding of this agency as South County Fire, with the impact of her work visible on the agency's website, uniforms, and every vehicle in its fleet. Whereas Director Hines served as part of the county's Joint Information Center following the Oso mudslide and during COVID, helping relay vital information to media and the public. Whereas Director Hines has been a consistent presence for more than 2 decades at many of the most serious emergencies our firefighters have faced. Whereas Director Hines' oversight of our communications has directly impacted South County Fire's sustainability as an organization. Whereas Director Hines' influence on the agency also goes far beyond her contributions in communications. Whereas Director Hines leaves South County Fire better than when she started, and her legacy of professionalism will be felt for many years to come. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the South County Fire Board of Fire Commissioners recognizes Leslie Hines for her public service and commitment to the firefighters, paramedics, and residents of South County Fire, and extends our gratitude. Adopted this day. And if it's okay, I'll
Picture?
That was the photo. You gotta have a photo.
I assume the commission would like to have a group picture with. Can we come up here? There's a group picture here.
We're gonna take a 5-minute break or so. We'll recess and throw some cookies or coffee. Okay, I believe we are back on the record. And next up is going to be the item number 6, the consent agenda. Commissioners, I'm handing down the, we've got the, I guess, the for the record version of the resolution for your signature that I'll pass down. So next up is consent agenda, item 6. In today's consent agenda, we have the January 2025 payroll summary and authorization. And the February 4, 2025 claims voucher totaling $1,633,009.77. I will move adoption of those two consent agenda items. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Lawrence. It's been moved and seconded to adopt the consent agenda items. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any discussion on the motion? If not, we'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. That moves us forward to approval of the meeting minutes and item number 7, which is the meeting minutes for January 14, 2025. That's a work session, and January 21, 2025 regular meeting. I'll move the adoption of those two sets of meeting minutes. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Commissioner Chan. It's been moved and seconded to adopt those two meeting minutes. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any discussion on the motion? If not, we'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. That moves us forward on the agenda to public comment, item number 8. I'll start first in the room. Is there any request for public comment here in the room? Not seeing any requests for public comment here in the room. I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Blankenship to just check our Zoom platform and let me know, is there any request for public comment on the Zoom platform?
There is not.
Thank you, Ms. Blankenship. I'll come back to the room and just ask, is there any request for public comment in the room one last time? And not seeing any, thank you. We will move forward in the agenda then to item number 9. Sorry, that's our fire chief's report. And welcome again, Chief Eastman.
Yeah, tonight, Chief Maxwell will be giving the chief's report.
Thank you, Chief, and good evening, Board. Just 2 quick items tonight. Our firefighters returned from California. They were both assigned to the Palisades Fire, and they all returned healthy, safe, no injuries, and our equipment came back safe. They mainly worked on structure protection and prepping areas for when the fire would arrive. But I can tell you, both in and out of uniform, everyone asked me, did you guys send people? Did you send people? And it was really, I really felt proud to be able to say, yeah, we did. And we sent 2 crews and we were able to help. That was really, I think that was really important to our community and the greater community that we helped. So we'll go into the next topic. So this is where I was last week, and if you, it's kind of covered up, but we're invited to go down to NASA, and you might ask, what would NASA have to do with us? And I asked, that was one of the questions I asked when I got down there. So NASA has an arm, since they solve really tough problems in getting into space, the moon, Mars. They have a branch that works on wicked problems. If you've heard the theory of wicked and tame, or complex, simple problems theory. So they have a team that works on wicked problems on Earth. So they use their expertise to help with local community problems on Earth. And one of the things that was identified was the massive struggle we had with hospitals overloading and moving patients around during the pandemic and even outside the pandemic. And so they invited a few people down to work there with their wicked problems team. And for 2 days, they facilitated us going through solving wicked complex problems. And I thought it was really neat what we worked on, but just learning how to work through a wicked problem, I think, is something neat just to bring back here. And if you look in the upper right-hand corner, I mean, I was pretty proud to see a South County Fire beside the NASA symbol there. So don't get to see that too often. So anyways, that's where I was last week. It was an incredible learning experience, and it was an incredible honor that South County Fire, I think this is what kind of puts us top shelf. It's these little things that help us, because they helped us with a ton of things through the pandemic. We reached out to them multiple times, and they helped us with many things. So they're a great partner, great connection. So that is the end of my report. Thank you.
Questions for Chief Maxwell on the chief's report? Commissioner Chan.
I was really surprised as at NASA. I thought you have a supercomputer, all these flashing lights and everything else. And end up with just using
sticky notes.
Sticky notes.
I made that comment while I was down there.
So if 3M did not invented sticky notes, we'll never solve problem.
Right, right.
Oh, my goodness.
They were very much into sticky notes. I noticed that too.
So how many people attended to that,
So,
the
yeah,
workshop, whatever?
I think there were about, I'm gonna say about 40 people. Most of them were physicians. So NASA had a wicked problems team that was integrated with each of our tables. And then NASA has a facilitation team to facilitate the whole thing. And we would, depending on the domain of work we were working on, they already knew what our expertise were, and they would keep reconfiguring the teams. And we kept, the main thing, well, we went through identifying the problem, and then we spent a whole wall of barriers. You wouldn't think there were so many barriers to moving patients around. It's incredible when you have that many experts in a room, and we spent a whole day figuring out barriers, and then the next day was figuring out solutions. And it was pretty interesting the way they divide solutions to must have. They had like 6 levels, should have, all the way to just forget it. We'll never be able to figure that out. I was very intrigued on their problem solving for complex problems, and we could probably use it here sometime.
So you're learning the process itself, or is that really actual trouble, problem they have, they're trying to solve it
Yeah,
themselves?
no, they're trying to solve the patient distribution problem and the hospital overloading problem, and then the interfacility transport problem.
Okay, so, all right, so, but you also learn the process, how to solve a problem. That can bring it back to us.
Yeah, the nerd in me was very intrigued in the process.
Oh, good. No, I'm glad you went, and I'm glad you get able to share with us, benefit us. I think that's critical.
Yeah, thank you. I agree. I agree.
Thank you, Chief Maxwell.
Thank you.
Oh, yes, Commissioner Lawrence.
Yes, thank you. This is the first time you've dealt with NASA, right?
Yeah, we've probably had over a decade-long relationship with NASA with our checklist that help us deliver that really high-quality medicine. They've given their experts on that. And then during the pandemic, of course, everyone did a ton of work to keep us in PPE supplies, but they sent us over to their astrophysicist department and helped us compute UV radiation from CPAP machines. And we were able to put our radios and our masks and everything, and we never ran out of PPE here. I mean, it was a lot of work. Chief Eastman did a ton of sourcing work, but we just reach out to them when we have tough things, and they are amazing how they step up and help us.
Yeah, excellent. Wow. Yeah. Do any other fire services do what we do? Are we that exceptional?
Yeah, I'm going to just say, yeah.
It's I just got lucky becoming a elected official for a pretty premier organization. I guess I'm pretty lucky.
We are exceptional.
Yeah.
We have exceptional people, and we get exceptional opportunities, and I think we take advantage of them in a good way.
Yeah.
We're gonna have a first fire truck in the Mars.
I'm working on it, Commissioner
Okay.
Cam. I'm
All
working on
right.
it.
Great. Thank you, Chief Maxwell. All right, moving forward on the agenda to item number 10, which is our legal report, and online or on our Zoom platform, we have our attorney, Richard Davis. Good evening, Mr. Davis.
Good evening, Commissioners, and I'll just follow up on that last comment that was made about exceptional people, and I'm sure Leslie has probably taken off by now, but it was interesting. I guess Leslie was probably joined about 2 or 3 years before I became general counsel for Snohomish County Fire District 1. And I just have to say, Leslie was one of the most professional people that I've ever worked with. It's not something as a lawyer you think you're going to really have a lot of involvement in, communication with the public or communication with media, but there are quite a few opportunities for overlap. And I learned quite a bit from her. Also looking forward to continuing to work with your new team, and it's been a pleasure working with Christy. So good things are ahead. So I just wanted to say that. The only thing that I really had for the legal report tonight is just something I became aware of recently that I thought I would mention that we are working on internally, and that is a change that kind of went under the radar with regards to the paid sick leave law. As you know, Washington passed a law which allows employees paid sick leave, whether or not their employer offers that as a benefit. And employees can take that for their own sickness, but they could also take care of a family member. And the law has defined what family members qualify for employees to take that leave. Effective January 1 of this year, the legislature amended the definition of family member to include people who live in the same household and also people who are cared for by the employee and expect that care from the employee. So we've really substantially broadened that from the traditional definition of family member to now people that may be entirely unrelated. And there are some complications that come from that we are going to be working on internally. And then, of course, we'll reach out to David and HR in order to kind of work through those to make sure that South County Fire is prepared. So that's all I have for my legal report tonight. Thank you for the opportunity to present it.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Davis. Any questions for Mr. Davis from the board members? No questions? Great. Thank you very much. Moving forward on the agenda then to our union report. And with us this evening, we have Matt Armstrong from Local 1828. Good evening.
Good evening, commissioners, staff. Thanks for allowing us to be here tonight. I only have a few things tonight. Just wanted to inform you guys, President Moore has appointed a new political director. That'll be Connor Holtum. He will be sort of point of contact on our political stuff from this point forward. And he's sort of in an interim role while Zach takes a little time off. He will be working primarily, or at least his first focus is the Edmonds annexation. And I would assume that he'll be in contact with you guys so that we have some joint messaging and whatnot. Local 1828 members right now are down in Olympia speaking on bills that impact firefighter safety, jobs, and whatnot. They are also speaking on behalf of the Fire Marshal Fire Authority bill that is currently being discussed down in Olympia. In closing, we'd like to also extend our congratulations and thanks to Leslie Hines for her years of service here at South County Fire, and good luck. And with that, that concludes my report. If you have any other questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Great. Thank you. Any questions from board members? Any questions? Not seeing any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving forward then in the agenda to item number 12, our unfinished business items, starting with item 12A, which is establishment of the 2025 benefit charge appeals deadline and review board. And this will be with our Chief Financial Officer, Chris Bothwell. Good evening, Mr. Bothwell.
Good evening. Thank you, Chair. One of the conditions of having a benefit charge is that the fire agency must provide an opportunity for property owners to appeal their benefit charge. The purpose of this agenda item is to satisfy the administrative requirements related to possible appeals. So the statutory requirements are as follows. The RFA must establish an appeals board, appoint 3 individuals to serve on the review board, establish a time period for the board's existence of not less than 14 days, and establish a deadline for appeals. So the resolution that's in your packet does the following. It establishes the review board and appoints Chief Maxwell, Communications Director Veely, and myself to serve on the board. It establishes a 60-day window from February 15th through April 15th for the existence of the board, and it sets April 1st as a deadline for appeals. So approval of the resolution would satisfy all the requirements related to the benefit charge appeals, and we are seeking action from you all tonight on this item. And as usual, I'll answer any questions.
Questions from the board members for Mr. Bothwell? Any questions on the benefit charge appeals process and the resolution setting it forth in the packet? If not, I think we are ready for action. I'll move the adoption of resolution 0204-2025-04, which is establishing the review board for the benefit charge appeals for calendar year 2024. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt that resolution. Is there discussion on the motion? Is there discussion on the motion? If not, we'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Okay, that takes us forward then in the agenda to item 12B, which is general liability and excess liability plan or renewal, update and discussion. Chief Eastman.
So if you recall, last meeting, we renewed our main policy. And then the excess liability that we've had in the past, we had a discussion about excess earthquake insurance. And then what I call excess to the excess liability. I don't know what the proper term is, but making sure we know what that is. And we got approval to move forward on those items. And I just want to give you an update of where we are. The excess, the $5 million of excess liability, additional excess liability, the application is in, and I've not received anything back to sign. So that's the status update with that. The excess earthquake insurance has been executed, but I wanted to explain because it's a little different than how I explained it at the meeting last week. It's the excess is based on what the insurance company has as the value of our improved properties. And so the excess covers what the 25 million didn't. And if you know how fire stations are valued, one of the challenges is they really don't have a market outside of being a fire station. So they're a challenge to value. I suspect that our fire stations are probably undervalued. And so all our stations, when you look at the improved property based on the value for the insurance we have, is just over 57 million. And so how the excess policy worked is we cover for 25 million in the main policy, and we have an additional 27 million in the excess policy, which covers the remainder of the improvements of the property. And so we executed that. It was right around $27,000. And then what we're going to do is we have to actually go back and knowing what the property values are worth where they are, and then looking at the cost of construction, which is 700 or more dollars per foot. We're going to reevaluate the cost of the improved properties that we have. And there's a couple things that'll go along with that. And I don't speak insurance lingo well, but I think some of our facilities, Station 23 had a value of $4 million. I get it's an old station, but to rebuild that station, we know moving 22 is at 20 million. So we're working with insurance to actually make sure we have an appropriate values to the stations and incorporate, the fact that they're hard to value like you would a house or a commercial space. Look at what the construction costs are, and we're lucky because we're in the process of building a fire station, and then adjust those values so we can, be properly insured. And that's going to mean probably the value of the improvements go up. It's going to have a financial impact on the main policy. And then the excess earthquake insurance will cover the gap, whatever that dollar amount is. And the other challenge with it is it doesn't necessarily cover permit stuff. It's really the construction side to build and rebuild the station. So I wanted to give everybody an update. That has been executed. And so we have that excess coverage of 27 million. And then staff will work with Nicholson and their staff to look at that and adjust that to make it appropriate, not overinflate it. That's not what we're talking about. And we do have some stations that are, built in 1975. And so we'll work through that. But that's my update on that. And as soon as I know that we've executed the extra additional $5 million of excess liability, I will make sure we get that, whether it's me or CFO Bothwell. When we execute that, we'll make sure we advise the board. We'll do it through email, and then we'll give you an update at the following chief's report.
Commissioner Chan.
Yes, so that definitely there's no fair market value, but the rebuild value, that's critical, right? So they will pay us now. the $25 million aggregate, the total, what happened if all our stations all
So,
broke down?
so right now, we have $25 million if we had an earthquake, $25 million to deal with to rebuild property due to an earthquake.
So it's just one station.
Or 25 million to fix 3 that weren't totally destroyed, right? It's a cap of 25 million.
Yeah, because one station alone is
Yep.
probably
Nope.
more than $25
Correct,
million.
right?
So
And then the way they do the excess is based on what Nicholson had for the value of our properties, and the excess covered all they do is take the total value minus the 25 million, and that's your excess policy.
Right.
And so for us, that's 27 million. Now, we know we have 15 fire stations, and we know that the construction side, and Jason, I'm gonna look at you, construction is between $6 and $12 million. When you take away soft costs, right? The architect, engineer, the permit stuff, when you pull the soft cost off, you're looking at between 6 and 10 million to actually build it. And so that's what that covers. They don't typically cover the soft costs. So, but I expected that number to be higher based on the value of the fire stations. The way Nicholson has our improved property valued, it was a total of 57 million. So I know that's undervalued just by looking at it. And before, right, we have total replacement costs. So the way our insurance is done, if we had something happen to one of our buildings like fire and it destroyed it, they would pay replacement cost. They would just rebuild the same fire station or headquarters building. And knowing what it costs to build the fire station and knowing what some of our stations are valued at, I think they're undervalued. Now, that was a benefit when you're looking at paying regular premiums. When you talk about truly being properly insured, and you're looking at excess earthquake insurance like we are, and we're looking at making sure we have, it falls in line with the excess liability, having our improved properties valued less became a disadvantage to us when we actually wanted to insure, right, in case the earthquake happened, which, some people say it's just a matter of time. It's not when, it's if.
So my question is, I'm just wanting to know in my head, what is our exposure? Because if we have an earthquake, 10 of our stations go down. So we're
Yeah.
gonna have a big exposure.
Yeah,
right?
so I think, it's been a while since I've done the Cascadian stuff. I think we'd look at 4 stations. That would be, and I don't know if that means totally destroyed. I think we're probably exposed, I think our exposure, and I'm guessing, Commissioner Chan, quite frankly,
Right.
100 to 120 million. And so we're able to insure 57 million today on that issue. And I think as we go and work with Nichols and their team to adjust what the values are and be real with it.
Right.
I think we'll be closer to between 78 and 90 million, just based on my conversations with Ashley. And then as we, like Station 22, we'll insure differently, right? Because it's not going to be a fire station as we build 22. Because it's a brand new station, we can use that to model some of those numbers off of. And we'll work with them to go there, and
Okay.
we'll have a better idea as we work through them between now and, our goal is to have some conversations with them and, like we said, look at insurance and risk as a whole, and be able to come at the next budget cycle and have that conversation and be able to report back on, where we think the risk is. We'll have a better idea of what that is, and then the cost to cover that risk, and we'll have that conversation
Right, no,
again in the fall.
Yeah, that's good. I think I like to customize it rather than just blanketly. We will have a big exposure if we do that. All right, thank you.
Other questions for the chief on the insurance issue? Not seeing any. Thank you, chief. We'll move forward. Oh, wait. Yeah, that's just update. So we'll move forward then to item 12C, which is the Briar Fire Marshal ILA for approval. And I think this will be Chief Anderson.
Yeah, good evening, Commissioner. So this ILA, similar to the Mount Lake Terrace one, I'd like to start by saying thank you to Paula Swisher for helping us go through it and adjust some of the timelines for fee schedule review by the city of Briar. Now it aligns with their annual scheduling for when they review all fees within the city. So that would be the only difference. Not significant, but much appreciate her help going through that and readjusting this. So now we have a signed copy that's been through their city council, and we're ready for action tonight for approval and signature.
Are there general questions from the board members for Chief Anderson about the Briar Fire Marshal ILA? Any general questions? If not, I do think we are ready for action on this tonight. So I will go ahead and move that we adopt the interlocal agreement between South County Fire and the City of Briar for fire code official services. It's been moved. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Lawrence. Been moved and seconded to adopt the ILA on fire marshal services with the City of Briar. Is there discussion on the motion? Is there discussion on the motion? If not, we will move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great. Thank you. All right, that moves us forward in the agenda to item number 12D, which is our South County Fire Organizational Roadmap. And we have with Chief Eastman.
Thank you, Chair. Sean's going to provide the presentation tonight, and I know I've got everybody in the room, but Christy, all the rest of the executive staff had pieces of the information when this, so I'm going to turn over to Sean. Sean, start the presentation.
Hello again. So this is, I guess we'll call it our third presentation in our organizational roadmap to the board. The first one, Chief Eastman kind of set the stage. Last week, Director Collin gave a report on staffing and HR. And this one is going to center on how we've kind of, from many, we've come to one, and the maturation from multiple mid to small organizations to a metro-sized organization. So I was able to capture some old images of yesterday and today here in South County Fire. And as you can see, we've grown and we've changed quite a bit over the years. So we were 2 fire districts, and then you can see we are multiple cities that have come together over the years. And now we're one large organization that not only has sprawled, broadly geographically, we're also going up vertically quite a bit. And we'll talk about that some more. So the chiefs did some research on fire department sizes, and this is just to give some perspective. So the International Association of Fire Chiefs designates if you're over 350 firefighters, you're a metro fire department. And then we'll get into the NFPA will carry the body of this presentation in the metrics of different size departments. But just to give everybody a little bit of orientation, in case you can't see my mouse too well up there, but there's almost 30,000 fire departments in the United States. Of that, a little over 5,300 are a career. And of those 5,300, they serve about 70% of the US population. Of these departments, about 46 provide BLS and then 17 provide ALS. So we're in the minority that checks all the boxes. And where do we fit? We fit, obviously, it's around the 250 to 500,000. So there's only 72 departments in the US out of those 30,000, which is pretty staggering. And so we're in the less than 1% of departments that serve a population that size. Or you could say we're probably right around 135th out of 29,452 departments. And you can kind of see, if you look at the top, 18 serve 1 million, or if you go down to the bottom, almost half serve under 2,500 people. So the NFPA, almost all of their statistics look at firefighters per 1,000 population, stations per thousand, and then various apparatus per thousand. And if you see the NFPA symbol there, you'll see, if you look at, and I'll show you the formula a little bit more here in a second. But you can see if we're to follow NFPA, they recommend 18 fire stations. We're at 15. We'll dig into that in a minute. 15 engines. We have 11 engines, and then we have 6 cross-staffed engines and medics. So sometimes that's hard to carry right across for a comparable. 3 ladders, we have 2 ladders, 6 specialty. And specialty are your hazmat, your technical rescue, maybe your marine and other specialty units. The really important thing, and we'll keep talking about this tonight, is we do a lot of EMS and we do a lot of ALS and BLS transport that I think is a little, most departments do EMS, but probably not to the level we do here. This, so dig into the fire stations. If you remember our capital facility plans, that first section of stations we've identified as nothing was needed there. The second 5 stations, they're recommended for replacement. The next 4 is recommended for seismic upgrades or renovations. And then the last 4 are recommended for gap stations. And if you kind of look on the right here, once we get there, we're pretty close to NFPA recommendations. We would be at 17, and NFPA is recommending 18. And this is just kind of a footnote, just keeping in mind all of our support facilities too, which are important. Headquarters, shops, storage, central stores. A lot of this, for the repair and logistics of a metro organization our size requires a lot of support. And I've kind of talked to you about that. So then, I hope that's not, okay, it's not blocked on your screen. So the formula for NFPA, and Grant, this is a recommendation. We were looking for a benchmark. This isn't a referendum. This is quite honestly the chiefs looking, what are the benchmarks for recommendations for staffing apparatus and stations? So this is the chiefs went out and researched this, not just me, all the chiefs. And this was pretty much the only reference point that was this broad, Todd, that we found. Yeah. Okay. So if you look at 1 firefighter per 1,000, we based our calculation on 300,000. And if you look over on the right, upper right corner, NFPA would recommend 1.56 firefighters per 1,000 with the formula they have. We're currently at 1.09. So the difference is just under a half a firefighter, under like a half firefighter per 1,000 that we fall below NFPA. And so there's some caveats. Like I said, this is not a referendum. This is to give us a baseline. Where should we be? And this was the only reference that was out there. The caveats that we want everyone to understand is deployment models and communities are vastly different in how they deploy. So these are broad numbers. These are broad staffing recommendations. Some of these departments included, when you look at metro departments, they might have a 4-person engine company. I know up in Canada, sometimes they have 5-person ladder company. So lots of different configurations, lots of different ALS and BLS response configurations, ALS and BLS engines, 2-person non-transport squads that have paramedics. There's a lot of differences there. And then some have third service that are non-fire-based EMS that are serving alongside the fire departments. And then the other caveat is this population is the estimate for today. We all know the population is going up. So if you look at when you do the configuration of the NFPA for 250,000 to almost 500,000, the recommendation is 1.56 firefighters per 1,000. So if we were to go all the way up to that, that would mean we would be staffing at 468 firefighters. If you look at where we are at today, these are, if you let's see. In the past, we would staff, and the Director Cullen talked about this, the 4.2, that was our multiplier for hiring for each position. And where that would put us at, when you look at the daytime, the 294, because we have our peak activity units, and then we have the 296 at night. And then we'll talk about this later when we talk about deployment. If we were to take our day units and have them dedicated 24 hours, it takes that number to up to 311 with that staffing factor. If we go to where we're at, our staffing factor of 4.5, you can see where the numbers come up to. And then you can also see down below. I know this is a lot of information, and we'd be happy to sit down with you individually. We will follow this presentation up and we'll send this to you for questions later. We know this is a lot of information, but we also thought it was important that you saw all the information. And then I know there was some talks about the 5.5 staffing factor at the last meeting where I wasn't present, and you can see how that logs out there as well. And then we're also, along the far right column, we are giving you what it would look like if we took all of our units and had every unit dedicated in the department operating 24 hours. You can see in the bottom right corner what kind of units that would look like. So then if we switch over from personnel to apparatus, you can see what it would take us in the current staffing model with the peak units. You can see we would need, it's the 70 during the day plus the 12 for the peaks, that would be 82. And if we were to go up all the way, we would need to have 3 more engines and 1 ladder. And then if you look off to the right there, that would be if we dedicated all the units. And so then this is my last slide, and we can go back and we can dig through all these too. Just wanted to orient you. So there's a term called double house, and double house means you put an engine and a ladder together, and that allows you to affect high-rise response more effectively. And so once we really start to go vertical, we're gonna have to start to have double houses strategically located across the RFA. And so what this is looking at is if we had 1 dual house, the additional staffing that would require 2 dual houses and then 3 dual houses. And those will be out into the future, but we wanted to take you from where we've been, kind of this area in the middle based on the NFPA recommendations, and then where we need to be someday as we really go vertical. So that is our presentation. I'm happy to go back and dig in or allow you to digest this more. We had a lot of discussions on taking a lot of content out, and we all decided we wanted the board to really see all of this. I know I keep saying it over, it's a lot. But it really maps out where we were and where we could be depending on where we want to be and depending on where the board wants to be. So with that, I take any questions, and everybody here was a part of it and everyone can help answer the questions.
Questions for Chief Maxwell, Commissioner Lawrence.
Yes, it was good, the information. I followed along. Good information, but how about coming back with a narrowing it down? Now we've had the background to a few of the outfits around that are real similar, especially in the fact that very small percentage of the total there had paramedics, and so something a little bit more comparable.
Yes. So
we have a hand in the back room.
Okay, go ahead.
Chief Andrews.
Comparable wise, if you look at Everett sits at about 1.75 right now compared to our 1.01, and Shoreline's at 1.98 for a comparable within the area.
Does Edmonds know this?
Is what?
Does Edmonds know this?
No.
And to compare sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, the interesting thing we discovered is, if you look at the national stats, we run a little bit lean. When you talk about, do people know, that means we're running a half a firefighter less per 1,000 than what the NFPA recommends. Yet we still deliver, a really good service. So I think that's an important comparison.
Chief Maxwell, I would best describe the board's view of the NFPA over time here as skeptical. We've talked about the NFPA, not recently, but in the past, and the 4-person standard, which has been that way for decades. Is there any new research that's come out of the NFPA, or is this all based on stuff from 20 and 30 years ago?
Did you notice if there was?
So we are due out for a new study on this. This is a 2020 study that all this information came out of with the NFPA. And most of the research was done by the Metro Chiefs Association, which is not an affiliation with the union, only works underneath the NFPA methodology type studies. And I would say that it's a lot more accurate and a lot more update than probably what we saw 23, 25 years ago.
And I think that's a fair statement, and I think that's an accurate statement in what you're saying, Commissioner Kenny. I would say that whether we agree precisely with these numbers, I think it gives us some base rates to have something to work off of.
Sorry, go ahead. Commissioner Rowland.
I will say we had kind of a review of response times a couple of months ago, and we noticed that the numbers weren't quite where we want them to be and haven't been for a long time. I think this really does a good job in explaining maybe why. We can't want good response times, but then also be so lean that we can't attain to those good response times. So while I do agree, everything, needs to be taken in context, population density, traffic patterns, all these things matter, and all of them are getting worse in our area when it comes to ensuring good quality service for people that need it in a timely manner. So I think it's a bit sobering in a way to say that if we took what is about 80% of our budget is in labor costs, if we just say conservatively 70% for our uniformed individuals, that's a pretty good amount of money that we would be increasing our budget to be able to attain to or match these if we wanted to. So I think we do definitely need to be strategic in how we grow, and I know you guys are keeping that in mind. So thank you for the info. It's always nice to see some proof that we are running very efficiently, but also some proof that maybe we need to figure out ways to grow responsibly. Thank you.
Thanks. And I want to reiterate, this isn't a referendum. This was a place for us to find a reference point. There aren't a lot of reference points out there.
I guess as I think about it, and has been my thought in the past, particularly as it relates to 3-person versus 4-person staffing on units, is the drastic cost. I mean, you're talking millions and millions of tax dollars to get there. And in some ways, I see an analogy between what we've talked about with our response times and not meeting the 8 minutes. You can tell me if I'm wrong, but the 8 minutes, 90% of the time is based on an NFPA standard. Is that right?
Yes. And we weren't recommending 4-person engine companies in here.
Well, I understand.
Oh, okay.
You've got it in there. You're talking about 4-person staffing. But what I'm getting at is, I'm not sure the NFPA is the be all and end all. And so that you have that in there as, the reference point that we're working off of. And I kind of feel like it's the hint of, well, this is where we need to be. And I've have skepticism from the past, and, maybe things have changed and there's new. That's why I ask about new research on it because, my thinking can be old about it and I've got to stay up to speed with, things change. But the the price tag for that is significant. It's huge tax dollars to get there. And what are we really getting for that money? Just makes me concerned. Not that it's not great to think about. And we are a changing environment where we are starting to go up, and we're suburban mostly, but look around, we've got more and more five-story buildings, and there'll be taller ones than that soon. And so it's definitely something to think about. And we have to prepare for the future. But I do also think about the analogy I was going to make, or the link I was going to make to the response times, is that we have chased that for years. We've spent money at it. We've thought about throwing even more money at it. And yet I don't believe I've ever had anybody come to a meeting and complain to me about our response times are not good enough. We've talked about how we think they're not good enough for our own purposes, but I've never had anybody from the public come and say, that's not good enough. You said you were going to meet it. I want you to raise my taxes by millions of dollars to get that 2, 3, 4, 5, 20 more seconds. That's just not been a priority for people, or they haven't seen it. There hasn't been that outcry for it. And so while the industry may say this is what we think is best practice, I just wonder a little about it. Anyways, that's just some thoughts, partially built on the past, and I want to stay relevant to the current time. But I didn't want the NFPA piece to go essentially unchallenged.
And I appreciate that. And I don't think anyone, because we're having some pretty philosophical conversations ourselves about these numbers, and we see the magnitude of the numbers as well, and that's not lost on us. I think it is sharing this as a team with the board and saying, where do we want to be? Maybe it's nowhere close to the upper end, but where do we want to be? And understanding that we don't have the public in here saying, where were you? But also us monitoring our performance on how well we're doing on saving lives, how well we are getting an effective force as the traffic gets here, I know that like with the vertical response, there is studies to show that like for medical, your chances of survival are not good if you're above the 3rd floor. And so there is science that we follow that maybe the public isn't saying, where are you? But we are saying, we know that we need to get there in X amount of time with X amount of people.
Interesting. Chief Anderson.
Yeah. Also take in mind too, that the work that HR did with their presentation and the change in statute, what you heard Richard Davis talking about tonight, and the change in statute with PIPML, and that's changed where you could count on having 4 people off at one given day for sick leave. Now is roughly 11, 12, if I'm correct, off every day because of the statute change. So some of these numbers and matrices that they put in there in some of the studies may be reflective of some of that too as well. Some of the different uses of leave that departments are experiencing as well.
Other questions, comments? Oh, Liaison Kritcher.
One of my philosophical things that I think about a lot is like fire resistant construction, and then like water demands, and for like sprinkler systems, and like in California, those systems failed because they weren't designed for what happened. And but like the one thing, like the real straight arrow of a thought for me is like, I think there's like another size of a ladder truck that we would need if we got to a certain height. And like, I think that we have the authority and the power to communicate with municipalities and say, you're not going to go over a certain height. And then, because maybe height provides a certain benefit to fire separation distances between buildings and access, but then you could put buildings closer together and it increased their fire resistance to each other. And then, but I mean, it's all just kind of a numbers game. But I think what I'd like to add is that we should be talking to like planners and building officials and kind of like, because I also think it's kind of a question of what kind of a force do you guys want to be? I mean, do you want to be like tactical and quick, or do you want to be like robust and have the heavy equipment or whatever? And I don't know if that's a fair way to categorize it, but that's what I wanted to throw out there.
I definitely appreciate that, and one of the things I get, well, now like Terrace. There we go. So I definitely appreciate that. The Mount Lake Terrace follows the International Fire Code. You really don't get any better than that as far as, you know, codes and compliance. You can build, my experience, 31 years, you can build a building that's up to code, fire resistant, and yet I've been in buildings where sprinkler systems are overcome by the BTUs of a fire because of the fire load that was in the occupancy that it wasn't even rated for. You know, there's all kinds of anomalies that show up that I've been on with fires that you're scratching your head saying, we should have never been in this building for a fire. So I can't plan for a fire based upon the buildings being resilient. I have to plan on a response for when that fails. But having said that, there is a balance to what you're saying. And you are correct. You can't go too robust. And if PA does have its, I think we should scrutinize it. I think we should look for other litmus tests and see what others are doing around. That's why when we were doing this study, we started looking at what are our neighbors doing? That's comparable within our boundaries. I think that as we go along, what we're trying to do is plan. We're trying to plan for the future. We can't just snap our fingers and make this happen. Yet we do have to identify the needs, and we've got to have further discussion, and we've got to get to that point where we can start a process for hiring what could be appropriate.
And to directly answer your question, we look at like that you talked about the tactical, you know, we go with speed of response and weight of response. So getting there fast and how much resources we can bring to bear on the emergency. So it's a speed and weight. And with all the lightweight construction and the buildings are getting where they burn faster now. And so both the speed and weight are critical to us. Just, I think you're trying to get there, and that's the nomenclature that we use. Thank you.
Commissioner Rowland? Yes.
So that's 15% of what we do is the fire, but it is probably one of the most expensive things to staff for and to have the equipment for and all of that. In relation to our EMS, what conclusions can you draw from this?
It's all.
So that was something we discussed quite a bit too. These numbers, I guess, and that speaks to the leanness and the efficiency of our organization. Our ALS and BLS, those numbers are accounted for in these numbers. Whereas if you look at maybe some of the other large metro departments, they might have a third service doing EMS, and they might not be fully counting all the EMS work within it. And we are accounting for our EMS work within the numbers we're providing you.
I guess the reason I asked is one of the things that was brought up earlier this year or actually last year when it was budget time, was the need for more medical units. Looking at this, it looks like there's about 12 future and 10 current, with 3 of those being peak activity units. I don't see for this, is there any view of for X, number of population, this is what we should have, or what they recommend for the medic staffing?
That's a bit more elusive because there's a saying in our industry: if you've seen one EMS system, you've seen one EMS system. They are so disparate on the different variations and configurations. That gets challenging to have a national standard on that. There's so many different models of EMS, from private, nonprofit, third service, fire-based, volunteer paid combination.
Sure. All right, thank you.
Other questions, comments from, Commissioner Chan?
Yeah, first of all, it's great thinking, but also for the future, can you just send us this ahead of the time? And then also, can you send me the presentation of this? So it would be much better if I can read it before the chart before, then when you say something, then I can easily follow. Second thing is that ever since they get the presentations of that thing, I couldn't sleep the last few weeks. The reason is that I'm concerned about certainly 5.5. That's a huge thing. I think this is a good subject for our discussion in our spring workshops. It's not a 5 minutes discussions in here, okay? But also you got realizing that only less than 10% of our taxpayer use our service, right? So most of the people don't even think about this. All they know is that, my goodness, my tax gone up again, right? That's what they think about. So we got to, well, first of all, we need to tackle that 5.5. We cannot let that go, but also that life is not 100% riskless.
Yes.
Risk averse, right? Otherwise, we have a station every single corner. So we got to think about that. And also, I still think about, I don't know what this public meeting, but maybe just EMS service alone, not in the big station. So that is a response time much faster. And then when the population change, I don't have to build another station, which is most expensive now. By the time you build a finished station, the population change. So we need to be flexible on that. We got to creative. We need some NASA people come in. Think about it. So I agree that we do not want to, the standard, whatever. I agree with you that we always, Commissioner.
And I appreciate that, Commissioner Jan. We in no way expect all these numbers to be digested or processed. We're bringing pieces of the puzzle on a regular basis that eventually we can kind of amalgamate this and discuss this as one thing. That I mean, we're not even saying this is what we need to do.
Right.
We are bringing you the global information so that we can culminate with a discussion about all this and how it fits together and where the board wants to take the organization. We're not even necessarily saying this is what we should do. We're providing the information to make an informed decision.
Actually, one thing, and the Edmonds annexation is a very good exercise for us because there's a lot of people don't understand the whole process. They keep on saying that we're not inefficient and all that. I could see that from outside of you. I always mention that, well, I can manage very good. You can give me if someone can forecast tomorrow how many car accidents that will be, at what time, and how many heart attack will happen, right?
Scheduled 911 calls?
Schedule, I can arranging. But that is the part of the things here is we cannot have a schedule for doing that, right? So therefore, what I'm saying is that two things. Number one, give me a copy, and then also we're going to look at and then put it in the study. But also, too, we need to message this to our general taxpayer. Let them understand what it means, okay? Because many situations, they drive by the station, they see all the ambulance still there, right? I drive a lot to our station. They're always there. It's like, what is, we're no service in there, but we got to let them know it's not that there is, we are paying for the preparedness of it, not the actual cause to it. That is a very difficult message to send to our taxpayer. So, no, it's a very good conversation. And then actually our finance and HR committee is going to dedicate a lot of this studying all this, what we can do to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and incidentally, after we had put this together, a California article came out and they used the NFPA staffing, and they were showing the different California departments. We didn't even know that was going to come out, so that was
Yeah.
interesting.
No, I think just geographically, probably Everett has a different rate versus Edmonds using geographically. I think it's a huge difference too because of calls and everything else in there. Yeah.
Density.
Yep.
Any other questions, comments? I just did have one last one, and that is you focused for a metro department on staffing. But I'm wondering, not for tonight, but maybe for a future presentation, are there other pieces of a metro department that we should be thinking about? Culture, units, particular units, the way they interact with other jurisdictions around them? Are there other characteristics of a metro department that aren't reflected in staffing that we should be thinking about if were to think of ourselves as a metro department?
That's great. I wish I would have thought of that. That's good.
Chiefy.
So before we close this, part of this was to orientate us to we're a large department in the eyes of the fire service in Snohomish County. I don't think we always think that, but we are. I mean, if you look at the math, we're like one of in the top 200 of fire departments in the country from a size perspective and who we protect. And I don't necessarily think we always look at ourselves from that perspective. One of the things staff has been challenged with over the years is we all came from 1 and 2, 3 station departments. We're not a 1, 2, 3 station department anymore. I remember we were running 11,000 calls a year and we're almost 40,000 calls a year today. We all know where the growth is coming. And so part of what we were trying to do is when I talked about we need to uncross staff and figure out where metro department, where do we need to go? Part of this was to explain and get us to think that we are, I think, in some sense, a larger department than we sometimes think we are. And if we're going to plan for the future, we need to truly understand who we are from that perspective. That I think, Commissioner Kenny, you've been here since 2003. We started as a very small entity, not a lot of employees and not a lot of call demand. And things have changed over the last 25 years to a place where now when you look at the cities that have joined, the fact that we're now annexed, the growth we have, we added 1 fire station. We're looking at 3 additional fire stations. We're on target based on our current planning being 18 station fire department. What does it actually mean? Did we ever think back in 2003 that we're going to have a $110 million expense budget? Probably not. And so part of this is you'll see this again. And part of it's just to help shape, because staff's been struggling with this of who are we, and make sure we know what we are when people look at us, because we may not be able to see it ourselves. And so, the questions about NFPA, this whole conversation is not about 1710. It's not about 4-person engines and the whole fight we had about 1710. This is looking at the fact that we probably should be on cross staff. We talked about that earlier. What does that mean? And now giving some form of reference that, quite frankly, Chair, we're not making it up. There are some things out there that we're actually leaning into to look and say, we didn't know this when I brought that up to the board in May of last year, right? Knowing we're going down this path, we're starting to look at who we are, what we need to be, where to help guide where we need to go. And this is the first step to say, here's what Metro means, and here's where we are. We're doing actually really good stuff. Now the question is, how do we keep up? Because if we don't plan, and some of our planning is more resources, at some point in time, the whole conversation that we're having. And the best part about today is it's a two-way dialogue between the board and staff in small chunks. And we're going to, you will hear this conversation again and hear it again and hear it again. And we haven't talked about the spring workshop. I'm hoping that we have it at such a time where staff can take some of this and have a section of the spring workshop to take, the last 15 meetings we've had and put it in kind of say what this looks like in the end, and be very deliberate, small, and do very specific things. And that's what tonight was, is to just look at who we are, look at maybe a way to compare us with agencies and get us thinking. So as we continue the dialogue, we work through this as an organization. And when we get to the end, we should have a skeleton of a plan that staff can go put the rest of the detail in, and it's something we can look at and say, all right, here's the 12, 14, 15 years, because we know we probably need to go there, and we can probably plan for the next 1, 2, 3 years, because you can't go much further than that, and then address it every year thereafter. So this has been a great dialogue. I guess I want to let the board know we're encouraged by the conversation back, because that's hugely valuable for my staff as they go and plan for what we're doing next, and what we're going to do next, and how we piece this together to hopefully at the end come up with specifically an organizational roadmap of where we should be going. And there's multiple factors, right? It's not just people, it's you got to resource it, and you got to have other benchmarks to go that we'll talk about as we go further. So I wanted to thank the board for the interaction, because that was the goal, as we had the vision to do this, is to have this constant dialogue. And I think we'll have a great product that comes out of it, and a vision that we can actually continue to address moving forward for years to come. So on behalf of staff, thanks for the dialogue and the conversation, because I think it's exactly what we were hoping would happen with the start of these conversations.
Great. Thank you, Chief. It's time for our usual meeting break here. Why don't we take about a 8-minute break till 10:02, and then I'll come back and we'll hit I think it's SCEMS is our next issue. So okay, we are back on the record, and we're going to continue in our meeting with item 12E, which is I'm going to just call it the SCEMS report with Chief Maxwell.
Here I am again. This is revisiting the EMS task force. I think we're on the 4th or 5th touch with you guys. We had a very struggling EMS system. We formed a task force, created ILA and an SLA to work with SNOCOM to house it, and produce a contract to coordinate and run EMS in this county. And now we are members of the task force are going out to our elected bodies and asking them to look over the ILA and consider adoption of the ILA. I think as of today, just over half of the agencies in the county have signed on to the ILA. Yes, sir.
Is that the ones that count? I mean, the ones that vote matters.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, all the agencies need to sign on.
Right, but it had to be a certain number.
Oh, the 90%?
Yeah, yeah.
We have not reached 90%, no.
Yeah, but
that will not
the
be
bigger
reached.
agencies had more clout.
It won't.
Their vote mattered.
It won't be reached without our signature.
Okay. And I've been thinking about this. What about 2-in-1 instead of 3-in-1?
If that is the board's desire, I will take that recommendation back to the task force, and we would redraft the ILA, and that would need to go back out if that would.
It's one board member's idea, but no.
Yeah, it's as Chief said earlier, it is the agreement with the board, and so.
What did we settle on? We haven't voted on anything yet.
No.
What did we kind of agree on last time? 3-in-1, right? Or were you else thinking about it?
Well, I think where we were heading after the last meeting, and Sean wasn't here, so I'm gonna insert a little bit, is we had another discussion, and I think there was two main topics that came up that about the information in the ILA that we may prefer additional or different language. One was the terms of the agreement. The current agreement is drafted. It's 3 years in with 1 year out, which makes the initial agreement a 4-year deal. And I know Chief Wittes has some issue with it being that long. And then the other one that I remember talking about was, you know, the fire chief or the fire chief's designee being the member of the board. And so I think there was some discussion on those two pieces. And I think where we left the last meeting, and Commissioner or Chair Kenny, correct me if I'm wrong, is we're at a place where if the board wants to see some different language, like what you brought forward, Commissioner Lawrence, we really would prefer, as the RFA, the terms to be 2 years with a 1 year out, which would make it a 3-year deal. The hope is the board would have that discussion, either say, yep, go make the change, chiefs, or there's not enough support to make that move and we'll stick with what they have. And then, we can have a conversation about if we want to approve the ILA as it's drafted tonight or bring it forward at the last meeting of the month. So my understanding is we were at a spot where for the board to talk about maybe some of the things like you brought up that you'd like to see change and see what the flavor of the board was. And if the board wanted to take formal action to ask us to change that, then staff would take that back to the task force and say the board, and I would assume I'd be able to go back and Sean would be able to go back and say, the board is agreement to the ILA with the exception of this, and they'd like to make it a 3-year deal instead of a 4-year deal.
So what I was thinking in terms of the timing is when we last talked about that, the Chief Eastman said we needed to really had a decision at their last meeting of this month. So I was hoping to talk about the issue tonight, get some ideas about there if folks really want change, some change terms, we can talk about that, perhaps have something in writing, also have the opportunity to talk about it at our next meeting and then vote on it the third meeting of the month. But if there was, total consensus tonight on something, we of course could vote on it tonight, but we don't have to. So we do have the availability to talk about it tonight. We're not going to take action at the work session next week. Then it will be the third meeting of the month to take action. So we're not under the gun to decide tonight, but we can if we want. So are there thoughts, discussion? I did have a question, and unrelated to these two topics. And that is, I just, the whole lease the employees seems it's a little odd to me. And there are a whole suite of employees that the new agency is going to be able to use from Snow 911. Yet Snow 911 is going to employ them, and then they're going to work to some degree, some full-time, some less than full-time for, I'm just going to call it SCEMS. But SCEMS is only paying for if they're not full-time for whatever portion they're using. It seems like a way to get more employees. And my concern is that the pressure is going to be, well, now you have a full suite of, you have an executive director, you have a deputy director, you have an HR director, you have an HR generalist, you have a finance director, a finance general, you have all these positions. Oh, but you're only leasing them. But now suddenly you need them because the HR director doesn't want to do that. You have to have an HR generalist to do that. Whereas if we were staffing with like the 5 to 8 people or 5 to 7 people we were talking about, you'd be lucky to have an HR director. You'd lucky to have a half-time HR person. So suddenly they're accessing all of these services, and the pressure is going to be on to use more of them. And so they aren't going to have the money to have them all full-time. So is Snow 911 subsidizing these positions? Are they Snow 911 positions and they're like, they got extra time available, so they're going to be able to give a quarter time of an HR director to this new entity? Something doesn't add up in my mind about how all these positions are going to be loaned. How does that work?
Yeah, I think there's not a clear and good answer for your question. I'll just preface with that. I think this has been the perennial challenge with trying to employ 2 to 3 people to run this organization. They've just been going from home to home, probably being subsidized a little, as you say, with HR or finance, because they're not big enough to support themselves. Yet it did not go well without having that support, as we all saw. And I think this is the best that the task force could figure out to come up with to work this agency.
So what it appears to me is it's a compromise between those that wanted a whole bunch more employees and essentially all this range of services, and those that wanted the smaller number of employees, a smaller entity to start with. But the concern that I have is that the pressure will be, well, we got to have these and we got to have this and we can't do without. And it's going to put a lot of pressure on the board to hold the line on the finances. That's what it's going to be. But the pressure is going to be from the executive director and then the Snow 911 director of, well, you got to have this, you got to have it. And we just can't operate without it. And you have to find the money. And so there's going to be pressure. There's going to be pressure on the board to toe the line of, we're really financed for 3 or 4 employees. You can't like divide that up and have 15 for the price of 4, unless Snow 911 is given a whole bunch of freebies, which, I guess I'm okay with. But I got a feeling they're not. I got a feeling they want to get paid. And so that's why I'm just seeing a tension between the two. And I'm wondering, I just have not seen this loan kind of thing. And I'm like, I don't know, how's that really going to work?
Yeah, and I guess to your point, we're the ones funding Snow 911 too. So, I mean,
So we asked this question because there was a handful of us fire chiefs that went and talked to Kurt and Terry. So the employees they would hire on behalf of SCEMS, so the director, the full-time employee, and I think there's 4 employees total, right? So they're going to hire them and then give them, for lack of a better term, to SCEMS, and SCEMS will run. Then there's the HR support, the finance support, the IT support. And when we met with Terry and Kurt, it sounds like whenever the IT division or the HR division or, those other suite of things that 911 is going to provide, they'll pay an hourly rate, and there's a schedule for that. And they'll keep a time card of the work they do, and then they'll get true up. So they'll get, which again, one of the challenges we had, and that's one of the reasons why the SLA, I believe, was important, to at least give you an understanding of what we're talking about. And what we didn't want is a blank check that they could have that be whatever it was, right? And put a limit in, it will not exceed this. So we actually know that there's bookends on it. And I think the draft you have in front of you, once we get to, if we agree and SCEMS is formed, then the new board will meet with 911 and finish negotiating the SLA, right? Because there's no entity to actually finish that negotiations, but the task force, and I made it very clear, I'm not bringing the rest of the stuff to the board until I have all the documents, understanding the caveat that the new entity and the board will finish the negotiations of the SLA with 911. So you have a draft that we can take the input from Commissioner Kennedy, like you brought forward. I'm going to be privileged enough to sit on the first board of governance for SCEMS and be part of the negotiations of the finaling up of the SLA. And so this document's not final yet, because this SLA is actually between SCEMS and 911. We just wanted you to see the full picture of what we're trying to do, because I think it's germane to you signing an ILA with SCEMS.
So it's more, these are the suite of services of an HR director, an HR generalist that would be needed to support a group of 3 or 4 employees. So yes, they do need, and it would be nice to have access to those services, but not to support 15 employees, to support 3 or 4 at that dollar rate. Now, that makes sense. And okay.
And I think that's the intent. And I think if
Okay.
you looked at the, and you've been following this right along, if you look at the first amount of people they wanted, I think their Cadillac plan at one time was 7.5 for that office. And so it's not, I mean, 15 at that point in time, our price tag on it's going to be closer to 1.4 million. And my guess is we'll have a conversation about, are we really going to do that anymore for some, right? I mean, I know where we are now. And I think initially for me, you know, when we had this conversation before and talked about the length, and then remember initially it was 5 years, that was a long time. Knowing for an entity like ours that, you know, and we have a substantial increase, and I support the cost model as we've talked about before. But if this is going to be the vision and the greatness that everybody thinks, I'm not sure what they're worried about a 2-year and a 1-year out versus a 3-year and 1-year out, because if it's as good as everybody envisions it, we're not going to want to leave, right? And my fear is, you know, as we go, and we've had partners that are willing to talk to us about further regionalization approaches, and we all know what those are. And at some point there becomes a cost to us. We have to really consider it from a business perspective. Does this make sense for the RFA anymore at the end of the day for what we're paying? And again, not taking away from the fact that having Dr. K and have a QA process that's independent from an agency, to be fully transparent, to let the taxpayers know we have somebody watching and doing quality assurance on the care we provide, and bringing forward quality improvement suggestions for us to make our system better, not taking that away. But at some point, you know, we've been doing this work for a long time within the RFA. I get where we're going from a regional perspective, but it still has to make business sense. And depending on where they go with it and the amount of people they put in play, and then the cost affiliated with it, we'll have conversations in the future about how we want to continue to participate, just because of sheer business from the RFA's perspective. I think where we are now, you know, outside of the length of time, if the board has concerns with that and want us to go ask for a change, I think we're in a good place. I support, you know, moving forward on the ILA, and getting it started, because if it turns out one of the challenges people have is maybe 911 isn't the right place, it's portable. We can move it. The SLA agreement goes away and we take SCIMs and move them to wherever we and the fire service want them to go. And I think the funding model is good for the long term. It makes sense to me. You know, we do pay more, but we have larger population. We have, and it's AV based, and it's the fairest way to do it, in my opinion. If you look at it from a county-wide effort, in my opinion, it makes the most sense. So I hope that answers some of that, because I think it may not be very clear in how it's written, but that's kind of how it was explained to us when we had concerns about, well, so you could just come and tell us it's a $300,000 bill and we got to pay it. We need some bookends on it to ensure there's parameters, and it comes back to the board.
That sounds good. Other questions, comments, thoughts on the ILA as a whole? So Commissioner Chan.
I'm always in the position that we're trying to ask whatever we want, but if not, even that, you know, we got to get it done. Because otherwise, I know being Snohomish and all that, because if we change something, somebody don't want to change, and then you're gonna go another 3 more months to get it done, or it's not gonna be.
Well, I would venture to say that the agencies that have signed on have agreed to the current terms are going to be in agreement to a 2-year, 1-year out, right? And really at the end of the day, if the board says we're not going to, and I'll just talk plain English, you know what? We agree with the current ILA. If it's a 2-year and 1 year out versus a 3-year and 1 year out, I'd go ask for the 2-year, 1 year out and say, and the board will sign. Because then the rest of the agencies have already signed. If they're willing to do a 4-year deal, why wouldn't they be willing to do a 3-year deal? And the reality is it's this now is at, you know, a topic of conversation that I know was brought up as concern. Now we as an organization need to work through it, and if we want to ask for the change, I'm more than willing to bring that back, and so is Sean. And if we're okay with the 3-year and 1 year out, then the ILA in front of you is for you to consider yay or nay on.
Okay, I just concerned the back and forth, because the thing is gonna take another 2 months, 3 months, and
I will tell you from the fire chief's perspective, I'm okay with that. I want the board to be comfortable with the agreement we're entering into with SCEMS. And I want your questions to be answered, and I want you to be very comfortable with the ILA that you agree to. And if there's if enough of the board has concerns with the terms and they want us to go back, staff will be more than happy to go do that. If the majority doesn't have concerns, then, you know, I think staff's comfortable with everything else in the ILA. I just know the board has brought that up on every conversation we've had. And it seems to be the one that continues to be talked about of the one thing that they have concerns over.
okay, I'm in a position that, yes, go and ask, but if they don't agree, I'm still good with, to me, it's close enough for rock and roll. Because otherwise, I hate this thing could drag on and on and on. Another question is that on the using Snow 911, all the members on the scans are also Snow 911 members, right? I mean, it got to be.
Well, all agencies will be dispatched from Snow 911, right? Yeah.
So it seemed to make a big deal out of 3 or 4 employee only, right? So they're using HR, they're not creating something completely different.
No, they're
yeah,
just
this is-
using I mean, let's say they use an hour a week of HR for whatever reason. I think that's the concept behind it is finance will help do their budget. They'll use finance for 14 hours and Snow 911 will charge SCEMS for the hours that resource is used based on the TCC model. So it's not, I mean, if you have a director, we're hiring a director, a lot of stuff can be done from that perspective. But when you go, for example, if they're hiring people, so 911 to hire them, HR does that work.
To
for
check out
that,
the
that
right,
work
right.
being done and the backgrounds that they do for the employees that they hire on behalf of SCEMS, they will bill SCEMS for the hours that HR did providing that function for the agency.
But you by building, not just a flat fee type of thing?
No,
They got-
the way I believe it's set, or where they want to set it up, is to have it be a total cost of compensation rate, and you'd
The
pay the total
reimbursement.
cost of compensation rate.
All right.
I want to chime in on the year thing because I have done that previously. I'm good with the 4 years because in part because the contract has already being signed is essentially running in 2025 if it gets signed. So 2 years puts us at 2027 to give the notice on the 3 years. So 3 years is just 2020, 2025, 2026, you'd be giving notice at the end of 2026 for the end of 2027. That's like almost right around the corner. So I think 4 years with the 3 years with the 4 years with the 1 year out makes good sense. The organization's got to get off the ground and get organized. That's going to take time. And so just to give it an opportunity to have a chance to get going. And also by the time we get to 3 years, if being the, significantly large member of the organization, if we put out the word that this isn't working, that will have a strong influence on what that happens and could lead to the demise of the organization early if we wanted that to happen. So I kind of feel like we could have a lot of influence, even if there's still another year left on there to get to 4 years. So I'd kind of like to give it a shot. because it would solve, if this solves this issue, it's a significant solve. This has been a problem for a long time, and if it can get solved, that'd be a real value add for us and for everybody in the county. I'd like to at least give it a shot to try and do that. I mean, it's not like I hate the 3-year, but I think the 4-year gives it a fair shake. And if it can't fly completely in 4 years, then it can't fly.
So Chair,
3 + 1, yeah.
Chair, is Paula in? and then-
I haven't seen her on that. Ms. Blankenship? Yes. Is Paula Swisher on the,
She's.
do you have a question for her?
No, just should we go point by point, see how everybody feels, so we don't have to come back again, talk about it? So,
Let's make a
like, for one
motion.
issues.
Make a motion.
Well, I mean, we can make a motion or we can
Yeah.
just talk about it.
The each issues and how everybody feel, if the majority feel something, then we go on it. Other people's okay, then we just do it.
Commissioner Rowland.
I think I've been pretty vocal and skeptical about the success of this organization so far and whether these plans will get us there. I think that given my concerns, I would be more comfortable with a 3-year or 2x1. I don't know when those clock starts. I know other people have signed papers, but I don't know when that clock would start. I would assume it wouldn't start in the past.
So the initial term expires December 31st, 27. So
Okay,
you
so
can't
technically-
terminate before December 31st of 27.
So the 2 years starts before the organization is actually formed. Okay, interesting. I understand the need for some stability and runway to be successful. So I would prefer the 3 years, just because I don't think there's been adequate answers as to how the formula that we've come up with will actually lead to success and benefits for the taxpayers and the people that live here in South County Fire, especially because most of the information sharing is, I think what we're trying to do is an influence campaign or I don't know what you want to call it, but a lot of it is getting a lot of the best practices that we have here out into the areas of the county that may benefit from them. So it's very much something that we're spending a good deal of money, but we're not going to be adopting, as we've said before, how they do things out in the rural areas as practices in here. So I do have difficulty trying to figure this whole thing out and where to sit on it. So I think a 3-year would make me more comfortable, but that's my piece.
Commissioner Teofilak, what do you think on the 3 to 4 year thing?
So I've been trying to read staff's kind of like body language, and I feel like sometimes I feel like they want the 3-1, but sometimes I feel like they're okay with the 2-1. Like, hey, just make me go back so I can get the 2-1. But I trust staff's opinion on this. But at the end of the day, I would feel more comfortable with the 2-1 option. But if you held my feet to the fire, I would do the 3-1.
Commissioner Fernhoff, what do you think on the 3-4 issue?
Yeah, I tend to agree with Commissioner Teofilak. Just I think staff has brought this back and forth, and if their comfort level is there, and that's the direction they think we should go, I'm going to go with their gut on it. I haven't heard anything from Snow 911's meetings that differ from anything that we've talked about. There's no hidden agenda that I can sense. So it's really about the comfort level of the organization. And as any new organization is birthed, if you will, there are going to be growing pains, and there are going to be people who are going to question, hey, was this a good idea? But I think it's going to take a full year of maturity before we actually understand, do we have the proper geometric wheels under the bus? Do we have square tires or do we have round? Yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Sounds good. Liaison Swisher, what do you think on the 3 to 4 issue, 3 to 4 year issue, or sorry, 3 or 4 year issue?
I agree with Commissioner Teofilak that I'd be more comfortable with the 2-1, but if need be, go 3-1.
Okay. And Liaison Kircher, what do you think on the 3 to 4 year issue?
I have no experience with how these things roll out, and so I'm going to abstain. I can't really tell.
Commissioner Lawrence, on the 3 to 4 year issue, what do you think?
Well, I'd like to, hope somebody put up a motion so we can just put it to bed here tonight. I don't want to talk about it again. So,
Well, if you have an opinion, otherwise the direction is
opinion?
clear.
Well,
Just want to give you a chance to express your thoughts.
I'm confused. So, 3-1 gives them a bit more chance to, prove that it works, 2-1. So, I'm in between there. So whatever motion gets put up eventually, then I'll vote on that.
Okay, but I don't know that we need a motion. I think the direction of the board is clear. The board wants 3 years to 2-1. So the direction to staff is to go back and get us a 3 year, a 2-1, 3. I'm calling that the 3 year, ILA. But before we move on from that, are there other issues, other concerns?
I think,
that board members
I think Paula has one that you want to, Paula,
Liaison Swisher, do you have something else on this?
Paula, shoot.
That-
Oh.
she had a-
I think she's the one who wanted to designate, has to be, what was her, she won,
She
make sure
wa-
the second,
She wanted to, yeah, she felt very strongly about being the fire chief, and in our
Yeah.
case, it's already been chosen. It will be the fire chief.
so that issue is solved.
Yes.
Okay, so we don't have to talk about it. Okay.
If that was her, she did bring that up at one time.
Well, when she comes back on the internet, we'll find out. But I want to see if there are other issues we should talk about, other things. Commissioner Teoflat on this.
Yeah, once we get the 2-1, I think it's
Good.
gonna fly through.
Okay. But I just want to kind of smoke out here. Are there other issues? Because if we're going back to ask, that's the time to ask if there's something else.
Is she on?
Liaison Swisher, can you hear us?
Yes.
Yeah,
I can hear you guys. I don't know if you can hear me.
yeah.
We can hear you now. Are there other issues on the ILA that you have?
No, if people representing
This helps.
I think,
then I'm
Well, that internet connection's not working too well there. So not hearing any distinct objections on other issues, I think the direction for the chief is clear. Go back to get us a 2-1. I'm calling that the 3-year contract. The other terms seem fine in the contract, and come back to us when you're able to put something together on that.
So what I'm hoping is, I know they have a meeting tomorrow, and what I would hope is that the edited language comes, and then my hope is that I can put it on the agenda for action on the 18th. So I will drive to put it for action on the 18th with the amendments that we requested made. That's my plan. So
Sounds
thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Great, thank you. All right, moving forward in the agenda then to item 12F, which is our legislative update. Chief Eastman.
So some of us are going down to Olympia. I think Commissioner Rowland's going down with staff. It'll be myself, Chief Maxwell, Chief Anderson, and we are bringing Deputy Fire Marshal Sherman down to Olympia with us. Sean and Todd, and we should probably bring David down there too tomorrow if we can. We have a meeting, and I apologize. I forget the representative's name. Bear with me. Is it Donahue? She's out of the 44. She was the primary sponsor of her bill. She reached out to AJ Johnson, and if you guys don't know Captain Johnson, he's a lobbyist for the State Council of Firefighters. He's been a lot of help with our legislation and connected us with the representative. My understanding is she reached out to the county's lobbyist, and there's a county that has a concern. I think they're probably some of the concerns through our conversations with is probably what's going to come up. She asked to meet with AJ. AJ gave me a call. I'm not able to get down. They're going to meet with her tomorrow at 3:45. So Chief Maxwell, Chief Anderson, AJ will go speak with her tomorrow and find out what the concerns are for the county or the counties. That'll allow us to maybe, caucus it tomorrow afternoon or tomorrow evening. And I'll meet with her on Thursday. I think it's at 3:30 as part of the fire caucus going in for Day on the Hill. Or she may want to meet anytime during the day, and I'll make that happen to maybe give her some solutions or at least some ideas of what we've talked specifically with the board about that. And I think some of it has to do with money. A lot of the agencies that do county fire marshal services at a county level predominantly pay for those services using fees. And if you have, the RFAs or the larger districts like us can't, if you look at King County, that's a lot that could actually get into this. That takes a lot of funding away from the county fire marshal's office. We talked about that when we first talked about it. And what does that mean? I think for us, we knew and how we take care of employees that are unionized. And then, some of the conversations about fire cause and termination countywide, when the county was able to do that and they may not have the revenue streams to do that, what are some of the options? And I think we talked that through as part of our, things that we are in a position to help solve with our county as we go. On the topic, I did reach out to Executive Summers' office through Jason Bierman, he's one of the, he works directly for Summers in his office. And Executive Summers was on vacation over the last couple weeks. And so I haven't been able to meet with him, but we let him know the legislation was coming prior to getting a bill number and all that in Olympia. So we've made that reach out. So that's happening tomorrow, and then we'll be on the Hill on the 6th. And I'm happy to say that about 5:30 this afternoon, I entered into agreement with a lobbyist, a guy by the name of David Foster. Came highly recommended. AJ has worked with him in Olympia. We have to do some work within the, to formally through the PDC, let him know he's doing work on our behalf, and he'll help us with the legislation as it goes through its process in Olympia. I do know it doesn't have any hearings this week. And the other thing with the agreement with Mr. Foster is if the bill dies, we're not on the hook for the whole, we're kind of a month with them. And he's knows what's going on. He talked to AJ and he does a lot of work and is well connected with the local government, county government, and that side of the down in Olympia. So I'm looking forward to meeting him. I don't know if we're going to meet him tomorrow evening, but we'll see him at the Hill on the 6th. So that's what's going on with Olympia. As far as Washington, D.C. goes, Commissioner Wittes, Commissioner Chan, Commissioner Rowling, myself, Chief Maxwell, will be going to Washington, D.C. I don't know if we're going to leave the 29th or the 30th. Things start relatively early on the 31st. And that tends to be a long flight, and there's going to be 2 really long days in Washington, D.C. for us. So, but we got accommodations. It's a very select group that's going on the Western. I'm happy to say I'm bringing my electeds along, and there's not a lot of other electeds going. I think the folks setting up for the Western were a little disappointed. The first day, we'll have breakfast. There'll be the acting director of FEMA will be with us. The acting director for the fire administration will be there. There'll be several key players and leaders within governmental agencies that we interact with that will be there in the morning at breakfast, and we'll be able to interact with them. And then we'll break out. We'll have the Westerns lobbyists give us a conversation about the topics to talk. We'll get about 10 minutes with each elected as we break out and go. And the topics are funding, like FEMA, and some of the things they've been talking about pulling funding or getting rid of FEMA altogether, the fire administration, the AFG grants, those. Obviously, we're part of the Western Chiefs, so wildland is a big topic of conversation. And I'm happy to say that GMT is the other topic of conversation that we will have. And so we'll have breakouts on that. We'll talk about that on Monday, and then starting at 7 o'clock Tuesday morning, we'll have breakfast again, and then we'll hit the hill. And then there'll be a dinner on Monday night and a dinner on Tuesday night. And we're going to be really fortunate. We get to network with the presidents and the vice presidents of the Chiefs Association from all 10 Western states. I'm actually looking forward to the conversation. I'm grateful that I get to bring back a delegation of the board. And I think it's part of why we got asked to go back specifically by Jeff Griffin, the Secretary of the Western. So that's the other piece that's going on with kind of where we are legislatively and what we're doing. So I'll take any questions, but I think we'll have more to talk about, not the work session unless we put it on the agenda, and we'll have briefs every meeting from here on how things are going.
Sounds good. Questions for the chief on that legislative update? Any questions? Okay, thank you, chief. All right, that moves us forward in the agenda to item 13A, which is the purchasing policy update. Chief Eastman, is that you?
Yeah, it's going to be me tonight.
Okay.
And we've got legal counsel Richard Davis is on the call, and there was some state law that changed in Olympia, and the financial management policies. The edits there were recommended by council, and to reflect the changes that happened in Olympia that became effective in January. I did talk to Shane Jensen, who does our purchasing, and really, this is the first time the board's seeing it. So we brought it forward. If the board wants to consider it for action tonight, they can. If the board wants time to review it, and like I said, we have Richard here who can answer any of the technical questions with the change of law, but we can bring it back on the 18th. Really, this is not going to affect any purchases until we get to the work we're going to do with New Station 22. And so the changes are to reflect the changes in state law, and in some, and I guess with that, I'll just say, Richard, do you have anything to add to give a high-level overview for the board?
No, that's a good summary, Chief. The legislature actually did a fairly significant overhaul. Our policies were in need of an update in order to comply or to be consistent with the law. And so all of these changes are just necessary changes that mirror the revisions to the statutes. So.
Questions or comments from the board on the policy? Any questions or comments on the changes to the purchasing policy? If not, are we ready for a vote? All right, well, I will move that we adopt the new purchasing policy proposed tonight in the packet. Second by Commissioner Teofilak. It's been moved and seconded to adopt the new purchasing policy. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any discussion on the motion? If not, we'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Great, thank you. That moves us forward to item 13B, which is the remount refurbishing of 2 ambulance units. And is this Chief Eastman?
Yep. Okay. James is not able to be here tonight. So the good news is, if in the replacement schedule, and is we anticipated needing to actually purchase 3 new aid medic units. In review and having logistics do their work in connection with Lauren and the folks at the shop, we've changed that. Instead of purchasing 3 new vehicles, we're going to take 2 of those vehicles and have them remounted. And so the request tonight in the agenda is for the board to authorize the remount of 2 transport units. And the difference is in the current budget that we brought forward, we were anticipating needing to buy 3 brand new units. We're able to do remounts, which is significantly less expensive. The other thing I will say is that right now, medic units have an approximate 500-day delivery cycle on them now. So the work that James and the EMS division are doing, they're looking at alternate vendors, where we need to go with our medic units in the future. And I would anticipate sometime in the not too distant future to have a request for the board to purchase the 1 new medic unit that we need for 2025. And then with a 500-day build time, we have 2 new medic units that are needed in 2027 based on a replacement schedule. And so that request will include those 2 to get them ordered, even though we wouldn't receive them till 2027. So that's coming for the future that James wanted me to make sure you know. And then the ask tonight is to award the board to approve for staff to sign the contracts to the remount refurbish of 2 North Star modules, and they put the numbers. Braun supplied 20 and on Braun Northwest supplied 2026 Ford F-450 4x2 ambulance prep packages.
Questions, comments? Commissioner Rowland.
I was just going to move that we authorize this.
It's been moved, and I'll second that to authorize the refurbish remount of those 2 units. Is there discussion on the motion? Is there discussion on the motion? If not, we'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously.
Thank you.
All right, that was item 13B, and that takes us to committee updates, starting first with capital facilities. Commissioner Lawrence.
Nothing to report.
All right, that takes us to finance and human resources. Commissioner Shan.
Yeah, we're gonna have a meeting on the February 20th, 25th, last Thursday. CFO, you have the kind of rough agenda. You're gonna send an agenda, right? You're gonna. So, don't roughly tell, okay, we'll send an agenda, and then I'll ask the committee members to bring on any issues you want to talk about to the meeting, so we're gonna select for the rest of the year what we're gonna attack. Right.
Thank you. Next up, intergovernmental. Is there anybody to talk on intergovernmental? Commissioner Wittes being on vacation tonight? No, okay. Snow 911, Commissioner Fernhoff.
Yeah, you pretty much gone over the hot topic as far as Snow 911 is concerned, so no updates. Thank you.
Sounds good. We're on to commissioner comments. Commissioner Wittes is excused for tonight, being on vacation. Other commissioner comments? Commissioner Lawrence and Commissioner Rowland.
Yeah, I'd like to, can we cancel the executive meeting tonight? We're almost out
I
of time.
think we got enough time to do what we need to do and be done by our 10 o'clock deadline. I'm optimistic. Commissioner Rowland.
I was just going to move prophylactically that we extend that deadline to 10:15, just in case, given that 40 minutes were allotted for this and we're already almost a half hour over. Doesn't mean we have to use all of it, but that'll prevent us from having to come out if we do need it.
Yeah, I support that.
So motion to extend by 15?
Yes.
Motion to extend by 15, seconded by Commissioner Shan. Is there discussion on the motion? Discussion on the motion? Not hearing any verbalized discussion.
May the record reflect guttural utterances.
But no verbalized words on the record. Not hearing any requests for verbal, any discussion. We'll move to a vote on to extend the meeting to 10:15. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes on a 4-2 vote, so we're extended to 10:15. All right. Okay, and we're back in commissioner comments. Any other commissioner comments? Any other commissioner comment? If not, we've got an executive session for the review of the performance of a public employee pursuant to RCW 4230-110-1G. I actually, let's take 5 minutes going back. I'll call that for 9:45 to 10. I actually think we can get it out by 10. And so we'll be back in executive session. We do not anticipate coming out of executive session and taking any action. And so with that, we will be in recess back to executive session. Thank you. No staff.